Hi, hello. My name is Konrad Jędrzejczyk. As previously mentioned, it will be a purely practical approach, so you will not find a lot of theoretical stuff in this presentation. There will be introduction in the elementary things, but this is all what I learned over years, really years of hacking Wi-Fi. I remember when I started with Backtrack 2.0, when I was anticipating Backtrack 2.0. So, and since this time, I really put my mind on GSM, Wi-Fi. So, some of little things that you will see in this presentation will be really useful for the guys that are constantly or often working with Wi-Fi. And for those who will be just starting, it will be a good elementary for the equipment and what to do, how to prepare your stuff. I know that during this time there will be also a competitor presentation with Wi-Fi Cactus, but I've included the important stuff in my presentation about it, so stay with me. Who I am? Currently, I'm a vice president in the financial institution, and I want to express that none of this is in any way related to my employer. Just a little disclaimer. I'm also in the 8-bit staff. Last year I was showing a practical hacking on Commodore 64. It was shell shock, cross-site scripting, network attacks, little things, reverse engineering. And I also have some experience in Wi-Fi with Commodore 64. So let's start. A little theory. At the beginning, I need to really. These are the two main frequencies that we will be interested in, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. We can see that the spectrum is quite occupied, so a lot of stuff is happening, a lot of jamming, a lot of problems, and really the problem in anticipation what the actual signal will be. This is the statistics from the portal that is aggregating a lot of data about the Wi-Fi. Guys are just installing their software and they driving around the cities collecting the data, and they are publicly publishing this data so everybody can access to it. As we can see, there is more and more Wi-Fi stuff. Wi-Fi stuff is everywhere. We know about the hacking through the Wi-Fi connected caps, everything, even light bulbs are now in the peer-to-peer Wi-Fi networks. So Wi-Fi is everywhere. For some time, it was very profitable to infect TVs, Samsung TVs, especially for the crypto mining. So antennas. We have basically two types of antennas. We have directional and omni. On the left side, you can see how it should work in theory, and on the right side, you have the real life. So you can be real close to the access point or the client, and you still get a really bad signal. Well, if you will move like 2 meters, it will be 2 times better. It is also unpredictable. As previously showed with this range, the best picture from this will be on the up right, this police car. This is a good example. On the level of the doors of the car, there is practically no signal, and this is how it works in reality, really. If we are talking about starting with our equipment, of course, the first would be the antenna. These are very elementary stuff, very cheap antennas. As in reality, the longer is better. Yeah, you need to remember that the antenna on both sides need to be of the same type. You cannot have the directional antenna like the one in the background. And the Omni antenna, if you want to have good range, good signal strength. So if you are dealing with directional antenna on the other side, you need to also have directional antenna. I was working for a longer time with a bigger directional antenna, including the 26-inch like satellite antenna, and surprisingly it was very bad, just because on the other side I had a little Omni antenna in the access point that I was attacking. The equipment, there is also a problem. It is not easy to get a good Wi-Fi card. If I would need to choose a Wi-Fi card that would be stable and it will make all the options available to you as a hacker, I would say that in the middle you have Proxim Orinoco Gold. This is very old card, PCMCA, and unfortunately it doesn't support the N standard. So this is only BNG. This was the only card that really works. On the right side, the black one, you have Alpha card. Everybody is now buying Alpha cards. And I will tell you that after time, if you are sniffing the network, you will get a lot of trash in your raw output. These cards are also very power consuming, so you may have problem with disability on the older laptops or Raspberry Pi or other little stuff. So this is not good solution for the long-term sniffing. On the top, you have two TP-Links. One is, the bigger one is a simple router. And I would say that this is the best solution. If you want to have a stable Wi-Fi card that will be working somewhere, potentially at your home at the beginning, this is the stuff that was designed to work long, to be stable during the changes of the temperature, and to really provide the data you want, not the random, not the existing channel like you can get from the Alpha card. On the left, you have the TP-Link with the own battery, but there is a need to some electronic skills in order to put the connector for the antenna to this device. There is also one more thing. You see here a flash drive on the bottom. It might be silly, but I can tell you that if we are talking about reprogramming routers, the USB 3.0 is this is the best example of not being compatible backwards. If you have USB 3.0 flash drive and you want to boot an operating system from this flash drive on the router, and you will be using USB 3.0, it won't work. It won't work. I was checking. This is not the problem of power. This is something during the post. So big USB 2.0 flash drive will be recommendable for any reprogrammed router if you want to store data on it. And on the left side, you have also 3G modem that is very useful. It does have its own micro SD slot. So, but about this we'll be talking later. These two. Obviously, on the right you have Raspberry Pi 3 with the Wi-Fi, and on the left you have TP-Link with its own battery. The better one for anything you do is the guy on the left side. Why? Because it is much easier to make a forensic on the micro SD card from the Raspberry Pi and know what you were doing on site than to download the flash that can be encrypted from the hardware on the left. So if you want to leave somewhere your equipment, I would recommend the guy on the left. These are the possible configurations for the stuff that you may leave on the premises. On the left, simple small TP-Link, the version with the battery, Raspberry Pi, and the one D-Link 505 that can be directly connected to the power feed. It can stay much longer. In the past, this was good stuff to correlate the GPS data with the Wi-Fi, beaconing and other stuff. Today we are mostly using the unfortunate alpha card. I say unfortunate because I never worked with the alpha card that will handle properly traffic for longer than 24 hours. And the cheap GPS device. About this we will be also talking later. If you want to sniff the networks, these free cards may be a good starting point, but not always. These are relatively cheap, so you can have these free of them for $10. Good deal. But still they are also not stable during the time along with increase of temperature. If you want to prepare your software, and I know that you want, you will be working under virtual machine. Why? Because anyone who had an experience with Kali Linux know that this is a very delicate, very unstable distribution. If you will install something, if you will update it, the system won't boot or something will be broken. Only the default install really works. If you will add something there, the problems will start. In this virtual machine, we can see on the second USB device is Atheros, the one I showed you, the alpha card, and the second is Prolific technology. This is our GPS. So these devices are recognizable by our virtual environment, even in VirtualBox. So I recommend you all to use virtual machines. The tests, at the very beginning you need to know with what you are dealing with, especially that sometimes you can even buy an Atheros card that will have a totally different chipset inside, but this is something from the manufacturer. This doesn't give you anything useful, but if you will look closely into the settings, you will see here two problems. This is the example from the chip cards that I've showed you before, these TP links. The first problem is that this is a little problem that the channel 14 is disabled. This is not a problem if you are sniffing and you can actually under the Kali or iCrack in general change this setting. But the problem is the bitrate. So we have much more routers that are handling traffic over 100 megabits per second. So if you're having a card with 54, if the connection will be negotiated with the faster frame rate, you will be just dropping frames. The second test here was designed to check if the card is, if the one card is properly forging the packets, and the second was intercepting and checking it. I say that this is a good test for the head for high frequency to check if it is capable of switching between the modes rapidly. That's why in the second example I have VLAN 0 mon 2 times, so both devices are set to the same physical device. And in this example, it passed all the tests, so this card will be handling itself well in the field. Obviously, these are now bases. As you know, we need to put our card into the monitor mode if we want to do anything. Some of the processes will be messing around with our monitor mode, so the best way is to kill them or to just use the check, so our crack will automatically also kill them. If we are talking about the monitoring, I would like to start from the Kismet, and I will tell you why. The Kismet is the only good sniffer that is saving the entire frames. ARM1 and G only saving part of them. And if you want to have some interesting data from the metadata from the access points that manufacturer put into the device, Kismet might be the solution. The second thing is it is relatively easy to digest the information from the GPS. In this slide, in the background, you can see that there is a feed from the SIR4, which is the GPS module. And here we have the GPS with the Wi-Fi data. You can check this. This is near the place where I live now. And this is the log from the Kismet. These are the information from the access points with the GPS location. Some people are thinking about correlating this data on the map, and some of them are doing this like in some very elementary scripts from the Python. And to be honest, this is not good solution because of the many reasons. If something is ready and something is working good, you should use the already available tools and this kind of output from the Kismet, GPS along with the Wi-Fi data, you can export into the KML file, which is easily importable into the Google Earth. So here I was driving with the internal card. In my laptop I was driving in the very center of the road, as you can see on the GPS, and still, despite my car is so old Mercedes, whole metal, it catches a lot of data about the clients, about the encryption, everything you want to know when you are preparing to set up an equipment in some premises. Because you are doing this, some say that they want to just gather all the possible information as in the Wi-Fi cactus that I will be mentioning later. But to be honest, if you are going around the premises, you just want to have the list of all access points, all the frequencies that are working, and to find some access point that may not be up to the security standards. It was easier in Poland to talk about it. It was so long time ago that they can't prosecute me about this. But I used to leave one of my cars that had antenna a very long Omnia antenna mounted on the combi, and I was leaving my stuff on some premises, of course, for the research purposes. And the battery on the left is 220 ampere hours, I think. It was a really big and heavy battery. This is not exactly the battery I was using because I never took picture of it. But on the right side, it is important that you will use a good power converter in order to have at least some efficiency in all of this. On the very beginning, I told you that the best way would be to reprogram your router to play around with. So this is easy. In most home routers, you need to just upload the firmware from the OpenWRT. In the most modern access point that you can actually use in the infrastructure in the city or some really expensive stuff, the manufacturer is checking the signing of the software that you want to upload. So the solution for this is to run a simple application that will just start on this access point, and it will download over the network the rest of the operating system. So this is the basic solution, very, of course, high level, to put OpenWRT or actually any alternative operating system on the network device. This is how it looks after you will telnet to it. Of course, you can have also the GUI from the web browser, but I don't use it because it just takes precious flash memory. In this example, this is again this very old TP-Link from the beginning of the presentation, this big one on the right top. And we can see that this is TP-Link 3220, and it was with the installed flash drive, 58 gigs. It's quite good for the network data capture, but bear in mind that you need to select really good USB 2.0 flash drive in order to have, if you don't want to your frames to be dropped. And it usually, there is a usual problem with this. On OpenWRT, you can see a very, very long table of hardware compatibility. I just remove the models to not advertise the guys from the beginning of the list. But what you will be looking for is the flash. You don't want to have 4, 8 megabytes. You want to have 16 or more. Why? Because it is much easier without the external flash drive to install the entire iCrack. So you will have everything. You will have sniffing capabilities. You can make a lot of stuff on the data that you have already on your flash drive. You can decrypt it. You can search for the particular things in the saved traffic and send them, for example, using 3G, as on the very example on the beginning. So 16 megabytes will work. And if you want to play around it, perhaps you can buy something newer than I showed you. So this is the guy that will be presenting now. Basically, he's sniffing all possible channels. I would say that this is overkill, and this is not very practical, just for sniffing purposes. Okay, he was first, I grant you that. But as the guy who was very versed in electronics, I can say that this equipment is not energy efficient. This is mostly because this equipment was received from the manufacturer that wanted to have good advertisement. But you can see, for example, that the guy on the right doesn't have his battery connected. But here you can see that he is using car battery. Imagine how much it weighs. And he's only one. So the idea will be not to have all the channels to be sniffed and with the server client configuration sent to this little computer on the top, but to make a proper intel about your premises, as I showed you before, to place strategically your equipment, like 3 devices per place, to have 5 places when you are sniffing, and then pull this data. Then you have complete overview of the network, not with the single point that is sniffing everything. This is my opinion, and I told him last year. So, when you manage to run your stuff, your equipment, and your virtual machine, and you're seeing the networks, you might be starting to look for the interesting stuff. And here, I would say that this 3 might be of interest. You have here a LED display. You have something on web that is actually sending traffic. and you have a graphic, which is interesting. So it came out later that the second network was actually like buffet, something like this, and the clients were using it. So if I would like to sniff the clients, I don't even need to show my face in the premises, so I not will be recorded by the cameras. I just can crack the web in like 5 minutes, but we won't be talking about web. This is a waste of time. Nobody is using it. I was really surprised to see this. This is screen for like 6 months ago. And the third network that is of interest is with this graphic. I would say if this would be a router, you need to put your mind on it in order to have this graphic. So this guy need to be at least semi in Linux-based operating systems in order to pull this off. So the second natural thing what you are doing is to check the MAC address. What is the manufacturer of the equipment? If he was putting some graphics and if he was changing everything, you may see also some like only D's or E's in the MAC address. This was not changed. This was also not randomized. And after checking it, it came out that LG Electronics manufactured this equipment. As far as I know, this most likely will be a mobile. So the guy just downloaded the application and made this kind of network. So this is not nothing significant, and you will not find interesting stuff in it, because we are looking for interesting stuff. After you sniff and prepare your data, you can also visualize them. iGraph-ng is no longer the default application that you can have on your default installation of Kali Linux. You need to install it nowadays. You can two views. One is the connections between the access point and the clients, and second is the client's beaconing. This is good for forensics. I was once a forensic investigator, and if you see a single client to connecting to several networks, home networks in the building, you can just have an idea who might be involved in hacking. This is the second view, so the client's beaconing. This is the files that are generated by iGraph are huge. So, but you can also see a lot of interesting stuff. For example, this I need to translate it. In this example, you know exactly where the guy is, the owner of the equipment is going. Here you have some company network, and this is interesting because in this example you can see the emotional state of the owner. On the here, koniec świata, it means end of the world. Not changeable, not changeable, evil. Everybody dies. So, and this is real stuff. Generally speaking, you can get a lot of information about the people that are on the conference. Usually the names of the networks suggest the origin of the particular guy, if he's coming from Germany, Poland, Czech Republic. So this might be interesting for many reasons. You don't need to have Kali Linux virtual machines and all this stuff. You can also use the mobile solution. There is a lot of free software. This is only one of them. Just basic information about the networks that you are surrounded. So you don't need to take your equipment everywhere to know what will be your area of interest. You can also make a heat map. There is a lot of professional programs to do this. It basically shows you where the signal strength is the best. This is also a very simple program. You just draw the picture of your home and go around it, confirming where you are on the map, and the heat map is created. So you know where is the best strength. As this may look like a toy. However, if you are going around the premises and you are looking the place to leave your car, leave your equipment, this would be an excellent solution because nobody will notice you playing around the mobile. We mentioned already the importance of the MAC addresses during the stage when you are gathering the information. These are the pictures from some random equipment of mine. And if you know your enemy, it would be much easier. In TP-Links, especially when they have the default network name, because if they have different, the default network name, you usually have the default password or at least the default operating system. So in this case, in these TP-Links, you can see that the default password this is not displaying good here. So here you have default password. This is 8 numbers. Same here. Of course, this is changed for each and every device. About the suffix and why it is here, we will be talking in a moment. But you can see that the password is always 8 digits. And yeah, here same thing. And for the link, you have 5 lowercase and 5 numbers. VPS. We will not talk long about it. It was poorly implemented, poorly designed. Somebody thought on the manufacturer's side that the clients are so incompetent that it will be easier for them to just put the numbers instead of password, because for some reason it might be too intellectually challenging. So they made VPS that for a long time was a very good way into the home networks, especially in Poland there is an UPC, and all of the routers were really long open for VPS. VPS normally should work like this, that you need to push the button physically on the device, then you can on the device that is connecting input the pin. Not only the device was accepting endless attempts of the pin, but by default, after powering it up, logically, the button was already pushed. So it was ready to be interviewed by anyone. Is it correct pin? No, okay. Next one. And after 4 hours, you were 100% that you had the correct password in plain text. It was sent over the air in plain text. Nice. It was until the January of 2016, so really long. Like it was open longer than 1 year. It was heaven then. It was so easy. Nowadays, if you have even older routers, they are all patched. So WASH is the software to check the capability of VPS. Actually, it is somewhat misleading because when I check it later, it came out that this is a reverse logic. So if you have no on lock, so this is actually that the VPS is enabled and you can try. So the only yes is VPS disabled. In practice, this works like this. It doesn't work. So I wouldn't put high hopes on any VPS challenges nowadays. You may be fortunate, but I would not count on it. By the way, you can also use VPS River cracking program on this router that I show you before. So you can install this simple script and leave the battery powered TP-Link anywhere. VPS safeguards, as I said, the best way it will be just to disable it if you have it and you don't want to change your firmware. But be aware that TP-Link and some other manufacturer was having this issue that if you disable it in the GUI in your browser, it was still visible on the network. So this was only for the user that okay, this is disabled, but it was still going. Of course, you need to have your eyes open. This is actually a screen from the from this big US event, and this password was transmitted over the national TV. It's good password. It's quite good password. If you don't have it in the word list, it's pretty good. So now we are going for the practical stuff. So apologies for this introduction, but I had to. I have 20 minutes still. You can see that some of the networks are still not encrypted. This is partially true, because if you have open network, you're usually dealing with the corporate network with somewhat different authentication. And this authentication is in most cases easily broken. One of my colleagues brought me his work laptop to play around, and it seemed that simple deauthentication from the network, any network, corporate network, home network, even if his network card was not associated with any network, I could just create the network that it was speaking for, the corporate network, and create free radius with any certificate. Why it was accepting any certificate? Because the service desk from this company, because of all this problem with distributing the keys, said that certification validation should be disabled. Ta-da! So it was accepting all the certificates. And what I could do with this? Well, I could derive NTLM hash from it. How, you say? It was using my fake certificate with the NTLM in very short version, very high level, and it was giving me response. Normally, you would be able to use the tool that is named sweep, but in this particular example, and you need to know about it because there is very little information about it, in username, the domain was also sent, and this was disrupting the NTLM. So 3 minutes in Wireshark, and then you were still capable of pulling the proper NTLM hash. And then, as you know, the NTLM is very easy to crack. It is logically split into 7/7, and the rainbow tables are available. During the WPA connection, the first version and the second, you always have the four-way handshake. This is what you want. This is what you will be reversing. You will be looking for the password. And this stuff you need to intercept. The best way is to disassociate your victim, your client, that was using the access point that you are interested in. The machine will automatically try to reconnect, and you can do this easily using rcrack, using DAUT. This is the reason why we were testing all this Wi-Fi cards, if they can forge these packets, it's mostly related to the forging the MAC address. So not every card is accepting MAC changing. Of course, you can also sniff the networks for a long period of time. On the right top, you can see that we already have the handshake. This is because of the longer amount of time that we spend on sniffing. So you can naturally wait if something will happen on the network. There will be some kind of miscommunication, and the client will try to attempt to connect again. On the left side, you have simple military jammers used in Africa. On the right side, you have top equipment from the shot this year in Poland on military conference. Of course, the better solution is to de-out the client. This is the simple way of doing this. I know that most of you already did this in the past, if you are interested. And if you de-out, as I previously mentioned, the client will attempt to reconnect, and on the right top, you have in green the WPA handshake that you can export to other software that we will be talking in a minute. The problem is that you usually need to have the traffic between the client and access point. Here you have the data sent, and here there is frames per second. So the second network will be easier, but we are not lost yet, because if we have access point that is not connected to any client, we can try to do the newest trick available, where you can derive the hash from the access point that is not connected to any client. This is brand new, but unfortunately, I can tell you that it works in 10% of the times maximum. There is a lot of things that need to be served by the access point, for example, roaming. Without it, your access point will not correctly answer you, and you won't have the hash to work with. So I would say that it is more a matter of luck. Perhaps it will change in the future, but for now, please do consider it as very similar stuff to VPS. I don't recommend it. It is better to look for the networks that actually have the clients, or wait for them, just to be on the safe side that when you will get into the premises, it won't work. This is how it works. It doesn't. I showed you the example when the TP-Link was not supporting roaming. It was a modern VND 40, I don't remember the name, but it was brand new stuff, and I couldn't execute this attack. So I know that there is a lot of YouTube videos that it is so successful, but it is not. We are interested in the passwords, not only to listen what our neighbor is doing on the network, but in general for the research purposes. So the password is obviously very important for us. Passwords are somewhat difficult topic, but I will try to explain how does it work. Some of you saw the YouTube videos when the guys were finding the password in minutes. This is usually because the password was in word list. This is an example of iCrack. This is very elementary attack only for the academic purposes. The reason for this is that it only used the CPU for cracking. As you know, the GPUs and other stuff is much more capable, much more potent. I will be showing you this in a minute. With the CPU speed, you won't get anything, Because of this, you will be using Hashcat. Hashcat will support real cracking using GPU rigs. And it also supports the attack that I've showed you without when the access point is clientless. You need to always check your versions because for some time rcrack was unable to export in the newer format of hash to the Hashcat. Those who really work with Hashcat know what I'm talking about. They created a tool. Recently it was patched and now we can connect together the iCrack and Hashcat without the additional software. You need to remember also that sometimes older software is better. Hashcat was some time ago totally redesigned in order to support more than 15 chars password. This gave it a lot of backlash in the inefficiency. It is slower now, 15% or more. So if you have, if your GPUs are supporting the Hashcat, the older version, you should use it. Especially that you won't be cracking such long passwords. And I will tell you right now why. This is Hashcat showing you the results for the CPO. We are not interested in that. This is what you are interested. Sorry for the theory, but this really works. If you have the examples that I've gave you from the devices on the pictures with, for example, only digits, or in UPC Poland, this big supplier of internet, the password was only 8 chars uppercase only. So you could have only 26 chars in the password with the proper rig. This is not expensive. You can even buy time in the cloud. This is like 2 days. If you have some single GPU, like home computer for gaming, in 2 weeks you will have password. But if you have a little more, if you have nine chars in your passwords, this really changed the game. So only one more sign in the password will give you an extreme rise in the time necessary. If you have this example for the 9 chars in the passwords, this is almost 2 months on the quite strong rig. And of course, as previously mentioned, the single CPU is totally inefficient. Here you have the calculation, easy calculation to make your assumption with what you are dealing with. So you can easily calculate the D-Link that had 5 lower cases and 5 numbers in the password by default. You can know is it worth with your equipment or not. This is real life examples. The dates are correct. This was 2013. I had a Radeon 6850. It was very slow for today's standards. And I had the password when I checked the first percent of the space. Why? Because I was incrementing, and the passwords was starting from AA. So I had passwords, full password in less than 8 hours, little more than 8 hours. This is some more new stuff. Here I was a little unlucky. It was at the end, 86%. 97 very unlucky, because statistically you should be like on 50%. And here the user did change the password, so I've checked the entire space and I had no hits. People are creating some passwords, but these are shorts. This is an example for the calculation. If you will use 4 words 4 words from the word list of 8,000. A simple word list for English language. So you have 4 words from the English word list, like correct, horse, battery, temple. And you can ask yourself if this is a strong password. Even if you know that this password is created in this way and you want to compute all the possible combinations, will it be better or not from the passwords that I've showed you before? It will be better, just because of the word list, because of the possibilities. Only 4 words. You can say that if we were talking about the numbers, it would be like 2, 3, 4, 5. But the possibilities. So these are, we are running out of time. These are the scripts that will allow you to ease the pain of creating your own word lists. You can put single string and it will create something like this. From one name, you can generate all of this. Usually in corporations, as you know, there is a capital letter, rest of the word, some number, and special sign, obviously. And on the right, you can see the actual password dump that was published recently on the internet. And the highlighted passwords can be generated using this password. Today there is also talk about the neural networks and generating of the password, so you will hear more since I'm out of the time. You can also use the frameworks that will show you, it will show the capabilities, and they are easy. I'm not a fan of such frameworks, but you can be acquainted with SSL strip and all the other stuff. You can see the traffic. You can change the traffic. Sometimes it's detected by the browser, but if you will buy proper certificate, you can avoid it. But this is not for this talk. Perhaps next year when we will have a workshop. And a lot of functions, so you can check it out. All of this can be made available on the simple router, all these tools, and sent over the network. Since we don't have time, I will not show you something, perhaps offsite. The one script that is really interesting, I really like it. I usually don't use ready-to-use tools, but this one is fine. You can Wi-Fi Fisher. You can change. You can select the scenario, what the victim can be interested in. Like, I don't know, free internet from the Facebook. You select it. You can see the traffic coming through this network. These are the screens from the mobile device. So this seems like firmware upgrade. You need to input your password. If you input something incorrectly, it will tell you about it. It will go with the progress, and after resetting the page, you will have internet access, and the password will be saved. Really nice, and it works under different browsers. This is a Linux. If you just put something there, and it will be less than 8 chars, you will be informed about this. 5 minutes for upgrade. You can also make a scenario with the Facebook. This is the thing we don't have really time for, so next year during the workshop I will show you how to solve the issue of browser not recognizing the certificate. And at the end you have your passwords and everything what the guys were inputting in your log. I was tempted to do this here, but I'm not versed in the Romanian law. One more thing at the end, please do be open-minded. Recently, there is a new version of Wi-Fi H. They think that in order to save some power, we will create a special beacon. So when the access point want to introduce itself to send the beacon about the name, network name, encryption, and so on, it will just send information, hey, everybody be silent, I will be now introducing myself. So obviously, you can do denial of service by creating an infinitive beacons, silent beacons, yes? So the real access point will be seeing that he's sitting in the crowd and he will be always silent, so the network will be invisible. Some of the stuff that I mentioned here, again, I really like the version for Commodore computers. And in Poland, this is the last slide. In Poland, after 5 years, after breaking the law related to any Wi-Fi communication, it's no longer valid, so you cannot be prosecuted after 5 years. In Poland, with 55 million of citizens, we had almost 3,000 cases. So I would say that would be it. I know that we don't have time. This is exactly the end of it. Do you have any questions? I really spend time on Wi-Fi. You can ask me everything. I'm not the guy who is theoretically thinking about it or watching YouTube videos. I really spend my time in the field. So.
Thank you, Conrad. Thank you very much. Please, let's give him a hand of applause for the presentation.
Thank you.
And of course, we will be staying here for the Q&A session, but just a short gratification moment, right? My colleague Joanna will be going at you with the microphone for whoever has questions. So I know it's morning, I know you haven't had your coffee yet, but this was a really interesting and practical session, and I'm sure that it would be very awesome for you to pick Conrad's brains here, since he's here. I would like to start with the first question.
Yes.
It's more of a noob question, but maybe this will work as an incentive for everyone else. If, for example, I am a beginner and I would like to get started on understanding how these methods work, what would you recommend to a person who would want to acquire such skills? What should they begin with?
The topic is quite broad, so I would start from asking myself what I want to accomplish. Do I want to know it theoretically? Do I want to have some professional certification, or I'm interested only in my neighbor password? Some of us want, for example, to be able to infiltrate the corporate networks. So I would start from the stating the purpose of the exercise. And
stating the purpose.
Yes, and then look for the knowledge. It is freely available. Most of it is just on YouTube. Sometimes these videos may get you idea for what to look for, because unfortunately most of them are specially designed to show you that something works, that in the field, as I mentioned, 90% of this is non-practical. It doesn't work for many reasons. So focusing on the target and then exploring the topic by yourself.
Okay. Are there any questions in the room? Please, yes, here in the front row. We'll start with this side and then we'll go further.
I can't hear you, sorry.
Is the microphone working? Is it on? Can you help us maybe, please?
No, I still can't hear you.
It's not working.
I saw that when they were changing battery.
Maybe you can, so meanwhile, can you rephrase his question and answer till we get this sorted?
Sure. What was the question?
So in order for everyone to hear, please, Conrad, rephrase the question.
Yes. So you are asking about the VPS countermeasures for blocking after several attempts. Yes, it was in the original specification, but it was not implemented on the very beginning. So nowadays, when you have a proper software for it, for proper firmware for the network devices, it actually locks you after like 5 or 12 attempts. So it is already implemented. Does it answer your question? Depending on the software. I know for sure that TP-Link is locking for everyone, Thomson also, so you need to go physically press the button, and forging the MAC address will not work. This is a good question. I never seen network device that will lock particular MAC address, because I know what you are getting at. Every example I had in the past was blocking all the VPS attempts, and it was waiting for the button to be pressed. Good question, thank you. Next question.
The next question. Please try and speak into the microphone so that everyone can hear.
It's not working. To change block limit. No, it won't reboot, even if in most broken operating systems for the network devices. Depending on the manufacturer, as previously I stated, you have 5, 12 attempts, sometimes 3 for Thomson. So depending on the manufacturer, because after it was so much broken, as I showed you on the presentation, they were starting to rush upgrades, patches, and they were not aligned with themselves. So each manufacturer have a different threshold for VPS attempts. But as I told you, VPS is nothing what you would really like to look at today, nowadays. It is a thing of 2 years ago. This was the very end when you could actually do something with VPS. Yes, most of them are patched. So you need to actually physically push the button each time when it is blocked or there is a timeout after pushing the button. Is that answer your question?
Guys,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
There was a last question?
Sure. No, but please, let's...
Very good question. The question is, what is the opinion on using the Kali Linux on mobile devices like NetHunter? And I will tell you that, as previously mentioned, Kali Linux is very delicate operating system. It is easily broken. For the examples I had in this presentation, I had a separate virtual machine just for the purpose of testing, because when I installed something else went broke. And there was a lot of time I was trying to repair it. And I can't imagine working again, because I used to, again on such operating system on the mobile device when I really don't have this opportunity of easily managing the snapshots from the virtual machines. Of course, I can play with the ch root or something like this, but I would say that this is unfeasible. It is nice to just look around on the networks, but at the same time you have a lot of software freely available, even for Android devices, that will make almost as good as the NetHunter. Is that? Yes. Yes, how to pass the certificate verification. Unfortunately, this is the thing for another talk. There are a lot of ways to achieve this. I don't really have time to elaborate on the topic, but there are even mistakes in the browser that allows you to display anything in the in the place when you have your domain. So you can have not only a valid certificate, you can have also different domain. So the attacking the browser is one thing, and the second thing is obtaining a certificate for your shop or something else that is bought on some, you know, third-party vendor that is reselling the Amazon stuff or whatever. So there is a it's sometimes you need to pay in order to make it good, like $100, but it would work. Any other questions? Okay. The opinion about WPA3, I will do it one by one. I have no opinion because I was unable to put my hands on any device that is supporting WPA3. I hope it won't be as good as they say. We shall see. Next question. Yes. Of course, there are many cards. Everything that is software-defined radio, like Blade RF X40, will be your card. I have some experience with the public safety networks, but I don't want to talk about this here since this is strictly related to Polish civil defense. Last question you had? Okay. Thank you. Any more questions? Sir. I cannot hear you, sorry.
What do you think about Capture Portal and how do you secure it? What do you recommend if you're using Capture Portal?
Capture Portal like this Wi-Fi Fisher?
Yeah, something like that.
For guest account. Well, to be honest, Wi-Fi is only a network for the layer for the transport of information. There are so many ways to attack it that you need to talk with the pen testers, like the guy in the first, Marek Zmysłowski here. But this is not really a question of the guest accounts. Of course, there are some guidelines like total separation between the clients, separate certificates or passwords for each guest. But except this, if you want to compromise such guest network, there are a lot of things you can do that are not Wi-Fi related. And I would put my mind into the actually looking into the security of the box itself rather than Wi-Fi. Please, sir. Do I use what? Hotel Wi-Fi. Of course, I have VPN. My VPN. When I'm using my VPN, I have my firewall and my virtual machine that is designed to handle browsing. It's fine. Always, of course, always VPN is mandatory for hotel networks, for anything that is open.
I would
Yes.
just like to mention that this will be the last question, okay?
Okay. Cubes OS, this is not a Wi-Fi related question. This question about my opinion about Cubes OS. I think that separating of everything in the virtual process is awesome idea. This is what we are looking for. It's great, but at the same time there are a lot of attacks on the virtual machine attacker manager, and more and more attacks, for example, CPU related to go out from the virtual machine. So this is not solution for everything, but it is an excellent approach. And this is also related with the quality of the code, because you know the security guy wouldn't be paid so good if the programmers would do their job. Okay, so I think that was the last question. So if you have any other questions, I will be sticking around the conference, so you can go and ask me directly.
Thank you very much, Konrad.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.